Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and we are back. We are getting back in the realm of Netflix. And of course, we're talking about Netflix. Tate is on the show, and we are here to talk about Stranger Things Season 3, which is sort of like the latest big deal in Netflix. Everyone was watching this on my Facebook, like when this went live. I think this went actually live on the 4th of July, which is actually when the series is set, which is some good release dates. I think Season 2 was Halloween, and I think that was released in Halloween, wasn't it?
Season 1, like Thanksgiving, Christmas time, because I want to say it was kind of that autumnal to winter kind of vibes I was getting in that first series. But yeah, this is the show that everyone's been hyped about for ages. I'd say that with Game of Thrones being not up to standard, this is probably the most hyped show at the moment, or at least for this year. After the events of Game of Thrones, I was looking massively forward to this. I saw the trailers. I saw a lot of the promotional stuff going into it. And I was psyched up for it. I watched back through the previous 2 series just to get myself into kind of the play of things. And yeah, I was ready to run with this, and I binged it within 2 days.
When did I start this? So it took me 3 days. So I'm 1 day on top of you, but slightly different to you. So I was watching the trailers for this thing when we started getting the teasers and the full trailers and everything like that. And honestly, none of the trailers were doing it for me. Something didn't seem right. It kind of had a sense of, there was one trailer that came out with and I'll talk more about this in the review, Billy and Mike's mom. And I was really worried because it seemed it's like the stuff you fast forward in porn. It was like that really bad, cheesy acting, like something like that.
It was kind of aiming for, Chris, though.
Yeah, I know, but it wasn't good. And I saw that and I was like, oh God, I hope this isn't really cringe. This just seems like it's trying really hard.
I love the poster for Series 3.
The posters are all great. That kind of old, like 80s Drew Struzan kind of style. They're my favorite kind of posters. And I'd love to see those posters come back into it more than the ones that we've got at the moment, which is sort of like the Photoshop splurged collage of stuff. But yeah, like the trailers came out, it gave me a sense of it been there, done that kind of thing. And I was like, okay, like, I love Stranger Things. Like Season 1 was definitely my favorite. Season 2 I had quite a lot of problems with, although it did have some standout moments. I kind of wanted this one to wow me, and you saw this before me, and you said, this is, I think you even went on record saying this is the best season of all 3. I think you said to me.
I'm standing by that. This is the best season of all 3 for various different reasons. I also said that it would compete to being possibly one of the best series put to Netflix. On further reflection of that, I mean, you've got to go back through, like, Black Mirror Series 3 was phenomenal. You've also got to look at almost every single series of BoJack, which always seems to knock out of the park every time. But this is definitely one of the strongest shows they have put out, and just one of the strongest television series out there at the moment. We'll go through the premise of it very quickly, because we're not going to do it how we do the BoJack reviews. We're not going to go through every single episode individually and talk about some key points. We're just going to talk about the series in general. Some of the absolute major plot points, some of the characters, the development done from them, and everything about the show in that sense. So in the summer of 1985 in Hawkins, the new Starcourt Mall has become the focal point of the town, driving other stores out of business. Sheriff Hopper is conflicted over Eleven and Mike's budding relationship, whilst Joyce considers moving out of Hawkins for better prospects, leaving the state of the children's friendship and her own relationship with Hopper in the air. However, a strange power fluctuation will trigger Will's awareness of something otherworldly, and Eleven and Max sense something is off about the town's residents. And despite having closed the portal to the Upside Down, fears are that they're still in danger from it.
Yeah, so I think we should start with general overview of what we thought, and then we'll go into some. I know, as you said, like we're not going to go episode by episode, but we'll touch on some of like the biggest talking points. And I guess we should say right off the bat, because this is going to be almost impossible to talk about. Maybe stick around for overall opinions, but spoilers will be pretty much right in from the start. So if just as a warning right now, if you haven't seen it, go and check it out first and come back. So my general overview is, this is probably my least favorite. It's a toss-up between season 2 or this one, and I'd probably have to go back and watch season 2. This is my least favorite series of all 3 series of Stranger Things. It gives me that sense. When the first one came out, it was huge. Everyone was talking about it. It was that great love letter to the 80s. It was an awesome throwback, but it was a great original story in and of itself. It played on some of the tropes and some of you know, there were certain music tracks that would be used or movie posters, but it was definitely set in that 80s realm. But it did feel inspired, and it did feel like a passion project by the directors who wanted to make this sort of love letter to the 80s. Then season 2 came out, and you get the sense of, you know, one was an original story that wanted to be told by its creators, but because it was successful, we've got to chase it up with a season 2 and a season 3.
Yeah.
And this season 3 feels more like a permeation of that to the extreme, where I get the sense that a lot of the series felt very meandering to me with this particular one. It felt like they didn't really know what to do with the characters. Like they had loads of different ideas going on. They wanted the coming of age stuff with the characters moving away. Then it was like, no, we've got evil Russians. Then we've got the people being possessed like zombies. And it felt you've got some political intrigue going on with a new mayor character played by Carey Elwes. And whilst it's great to see Carey Elwes back in something, because I mean, I love Carey Elwes. Going back to like 80s movies, he was in Princess Bride, for God's sake. There's a lot of characters that just kind of fall to the wayside, or when you've watched all 8 episodes, feel very inconsequential to the main plot. I honestly, and the writing as well for this one, I thought the writing was probably the weakest out of all 3 series.
Go on,
sorry.
I was going to say there's a lot going on with the series. With the previous series, it's been pretty much everyone's on the same page and everyone's focusing on the same kind of threat. So in the first series, it was the one Demogorgon that they had to go after, who was hunting everyone down. Series 2, it was the Demodogs, and trying to close the gate with the Mind Flayer as well. So it was very kind of focused in. They're all on the same enemy. With this series, they do have multiple different enemies. They do have multiple different things to focus on. But I think that's where it plays to its strength. The reason why I'm saying this is the best series is because I am always for character-focused and character development-driven dramas. And this one, I think that this series had the most development that they kids have ever had. Any of the characters actually ever had throughout the entire series. These guys are growing up. They understand that within the series that these guys are starting to grow up. They're starting to kind of become young adults and everything like that. And there are areas of growing apart. They kind of touch very quickly onto themes of bullying. They touch onto relationships. They touch onto absolutely everything. And everything came together so very well. And it was nice that they did have those different things to focus on, because it showed that even though they're a team, that things do naturally drift apart. People do have their own kind of agendas, and that worked perfectly in their favor. I like the idea of the kind of whole Russian subplot, because the Russians have been almost involved in it since series 1 with 11 seeing the Russian conversation. It's nice that they've actually come back and they're actually now a main villain of the series, and they're trying to open the gate themselves. I also liked the Mind Flayer this season and the kind of threat that it brought. It felt like watching a Terminator 2 kind of vibe, with that kind of unstoppable force that can kind of melt
the liquid metal thing, like merging into something. Yeah.
So everything about this series, I think, was done extremely well. And the characters, just every single character had possibly their best performance. The only character I'd say wasn't given enough material or characters set of who could have been given more would have been the character of Nancy. I think that her character was very kind of mute this season, where she was given a lot of stuff in the previous series. Like, she was given nothing really. Same with Jonathan this series as well.
I'll agree with that.
Jonathan, their subplot didn't really come to anything, but the other subplots did very well. And Will, I think Will has been such a key character in the previous series, with the first series being the boy who disappeared and the boy who needs saving, to second series basically acting as the spy working for both sides. This series, he just touched his neck, and that's all he did.
It kind of reminded me of the James McAvoy thing in the X-Men movies, where he does this a lot. In this, it's just like
that's all he did.
That's all. Yeah, that's it.
He's a phenomenal actor from the previous series. His role was kind of taken over by the character of need to find him here. What's his name? The brother of Max.
Billy.
Billy kind of took over that role of the character who's kind of playing both sides and is being conflicted and being kind of driven into that sense. Other than that, this series was, I'd say, a little bit less subtle with the 80s nods.
It was incredibly, I
even said to you, it's so 80s it hurts.
And this is where I'm torn on it, because I'm a sucker for the 80s. It's my favorite generation. It's my favorite decade. media-wise, fashion, just everything. Like, I live and breathe the 80s, but this one was trying very, very hard. This didn't feel authentically 80s. And you know what? The other two series have been guilty of this as well, but maybe to a lesser extent. This one, like, there are clothing montages to Madonna songs in this. This is as 80s as we're getting. People are singing Never Ending Story. It's stuff that we in 2019 are nostalgic for, so it plays on our nostalgia, and it's framed more so in that way as almost like a nostalgia, like, oh, we're throwing back to these things you remember, you know, like Gremlins or Never Ending Story or Back to the Future and things like that. And it feels like it's championing that, but it doesn't feel authentically within that decade, within that 1985 year of the 80s. It's fun to watch. Like, I have a good time with it. Like, they play one of my favorite songs. Like, I'm singing along to it as I'm watching it. There's a movie poster in the background. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. So I am a mark for this kind of thing, but I am conscious that it is very manipulative in that regard.
I feel like in the previous series, it was maybe a little bit more subtle because the TV series wasn't as popular, and they had to kind of make it stand out a little bit more as the series has gone on. Just almost keep up appearances, but I'm okay with that. Like, in that sense.
Can I talk about one of my positives though? Because I am probably going to like unload on this series. The one positive I will say is that you can see the money this series where Netflix have put into this thing. This is the best looking special effects wise, just set wise, the scale of it, everything like that. They've really outdone themselves with this series in particular. Some of my problems I've had with the previous series, especially if you go back to season 1, special effects are not good. They're not awful, but in
series 1, the Demogorgon was just a dude in a suit. Like,
in some scenes, but a lot of the scenes you did have the special effects one too, which I don't think have held up well. But the special effects in this look fantastic.
I want to credit the casting department. Casting Maya Hawke as Robin, inspired. She played the role absolutely brilliantly and had one of the kind of stealing scenes of the season with her basically like coming out, which was just really, really well done. It was very tasteful. It was very believable as well within that character. I also want to say the characters on the series who I absolutely loved. Dr. Alexei, he was just a great fun kind of comedy relief character. Very well done in that sense. And Mr. Terminator himself, Grigori, who was a brilliant kind of side villain of the series as the main Russian guy to be after everyone.
You were telling me about him, and I did see some earlier reviews as well before I even started watching this thing where they said that there's basically a Terminator-like bad guy who's a Russian. And you said, like, he's this stoic guy, he's this big muscle-bound guy, and I was just about to write, oh, so like Ivan Drago from Rocky IV, and you went, he's basically like Drago and the Terminator. I was just like, okay, that's perfect. I did like his character. I thought it was maybe a bit too on the nose Terminator reference, but he's that cool like henchman guy that goes in, shakes things up, gets the job done. I didn't have a problem with his character in particular. I thought he was pretty cool. Okay, so first off, the character of Robin, you dropped that revelation on me that she is the spawn of Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman, which I did not know. I wasn't aware of like Uma Thurman's kids or anything like that.
The series, but I will say that I couldn't stop kind of picturing the two of them like you can tell from her face immediately that she is.
As soon as you said it, all I could see was Uma Thurman. Like she is the spitting image of a mom. When she laughs as well, like when you like look at some of her laughing in Kill Bill, like there's similarities there to the point where if they do a Kill Bill 3, I kind of hope that she plays BB. Like how cool would that be if she played the bride's daughter?
Yeah.
And she was really good. Like some of my favorite moments in this series are just the very humble heart-to-heart conversations between two people. Two of which are both from Robin and Steve's character.
I think both of those characters worked really well and they played off each other. Steve's always been one of the strongest characters throughout the series. Even though he was kind of like a pseudo villain in series 1, he's grown on everyone. Everyone loves him now. But he's the kind of character who just doesn't catch a break, and he's one of the characters who has almost become bigger than both Natalie Dyer and Charlie Heaton's characters of Nancy and John, because those two characters were originally kind of the two that you pitched together. Now those two have almost become kind of backsaddle characters. They didn't really have much to do in this series, but like Steve had so much to do this series. Like he's become such a major player within this game. And I love that kind of. I like the group dynamics they put the teams in this series. I like the whole dynamic of Dustin and Lucas's sister and both Steve and Robin as that kind of team that kind of went off and dealt with the Russians.
I couldn't stand Lucas's sister in this series. I know
I
that's
think
the kind of character she was meant to be going through. That like
she's progressed very well. I will say that.
that
Like, she's better than
bratty, sassy kind of character. But to me, that was the only trope that she had. And this is a kind of thing that I was noticing in this series more so than the other two, is that they kind of assigned a trope, a type to each character. You know, like there was Dustin when he like screams when he's in danger, and it felt like they definitely dialed the comedy up more so in this series, even to a point where when the characters are meant to be in peril, I could never take it seriously because they'd always throw a joke in there. It felt very sort of like MCU kind of thing where you're trying to have a moment and then they just throw a funny in there. There's a lot of moments like that with Joyce and Hopper. Hopper seems like they've really dialed up the comedy with him in this series. When we see him in season 1, he's sort of this, you know, overweight, down on his luck, drinking, you know, working man cop guy. In this one, and as Jeremy Johns quoted it in his review, he's basically Homer Simpson, and that is exactly what he feels like in this. I don't know. There was something about the writing, something about the characterization. It felt easy.
He's the character who has developed from series 1. He's not so much down on his luck now. He actually has someone to look after, and that is the focus of a lot of the series kind of tension, with that kind of him trying to balance the whole 11 dating Mike thing. And he's also got to deal with kind of the kind of friendship that he has with Joyce. And those kind of influences has kind of made him into a more lighthearted character. And I'm okay with that because that has felt kind of earned in his progression.
I think when you've got some characters that could be comic relief, the guy who translates Russian for them with the beard, like I'm fine with him being comic relief, but it felt like every character in this was comic relief, maybe apart from Billy. But it seemed that every character had loads of light moments, and it didn't strike it as a balance to me. It felt like
a series where there was a lot more freedom. The threat isn't there from the very start. They're not trying to disguise or hide anything. They're trying to settle back into normal life, and that's maybe why there's a little bit more fun added into it. And sure, when the threat comes, they do start to become a little bit more serious, and there are some extremely serious moments within the series for all of the characters. Like I think one of the best scenes in the entire series and one of the most powerful ones is Will destroying Castle Byers. And that entire scene of him basically ripping down his childhood in the rain. That's hard hitting. Like, you can't say that is a kind of a comedy breaking moment. Or
no, I'm not saying everything was like there were some characters, but it just felt like the majority of characters. Cary Elwes, for example. There's a moment where he's getting beaten up by the Russian, and you just don't buy it because everything just feels so over the top. Everyone feels like a caricature in this series.
Well, I feel like that's kind of been leaning in the way that it would go anyway. So I'm okay with that because it fits perfectly well into the progression of those kind of moments and characters.
Okay, we'll agree to disagree on that one.
Chris. Progression is everything.
There are moments, there are elements of the story, the premise that I do really like. I think that there is a necessity there for the kids, the gang to break up, you know, as they're entering adulthood. Like they're going to be either moving, they're going to be entering relationships. Things aren't going to stay the same. And Will is that character that kind of wants things to stay that constant. Like there's that moment.
You want things to stay that constant. But like everyone else around him is moving so much quicker.
Yeah.
And sure, it feels like he's almost had a year of his life stolen from series 1. And series 2, he's being kind of pitched off as this person who may not be as trusted as previously thought. I'm not sure whether everyone else is he's still quite an underdeveloped character.
But he has been the victim, hasn't he? So we haven't really seen him interact all that much with the group. Season 1, he was missing like the entire time.
For the first 2 series, like everyone else has been toughening up and learning the hard way about life and stuff like that, and getting older. He's stayed in the same place, and even for characters like Dustin, who's becoming a little bit more individual and kind of forming his own friendships and everything like that. And you've got the characters of both Mike and Lucas who have gone off and kind of are starting to grow up in themselves because they've survived through these things. Will hasn't really survived through them. He's been dormant in the first series. In the second series, he caused the problem. So he hasn't had that opportunity to kind of overcome those obstacles. And because of that, everyone else has kind of grown up maybe rapidly, really, really fast, kind of going into that kind of young adulthood kind of stage. And he still wants to sit back and he wants to play D&D. He wants to dress up. He wants to be that kind of inner kid, have things how they were maybe 2 years ago before all of this shit went down.
There's even that really naive line that he has, which is it's so naive and it's almost petty, but it is also kind of heartbreaking at the same time, where he's talking with Mike and Mike says something like, what did you think, we were just gonna stay kids forever and play D&D or the rest of our lives? And he was like, yeah, I did. And that is kind of the state of his character now. Would you say that a lot of those elements that are set up at the beginning do kind of fall to the wayside in the middle when you get into like the whole underground Russian base and the mall and everything like that? Because I do think they drop quite a lot of stuff and then just resurrect it very quickly at the end.
The first half of the series is purely based on testing the friendships within all of the couples and groups that have been formed. You've got the relationship being tested between Nancy and John. You've got Steve's kind of relationships being tested between like Robin and also his relationship that he has with Dustin. You've got the entire group as well who are starting to split apart. You got Mike and Eleven's kind of their whole kind of thing that's happening between them. The second half of the series purely focuses on the threat, and maybe because the threat becomes a little bit more apparent towards the second half of the series, I'd say from the sauna test episode onwards, when they actually realize that there is a major threat. Mm-hmm. They start to focus on that a little bit more because they know that that is the thing to focus on. Those character dynamics kind of fall to the wayside a little bit more, but there's still creeping moments of relationships and character moments that come back through. Like Mike and Eleven still have that kind of will they, won't they throughout the entire series. You have the hospital scene where they try and talk to each other and talk it out and everything like that. And those kind of moments are spotted throughout the second half of the series and kind of keep you invested in that relationship. And it drops on you in the 8th episode, the finale of the series, where they basically go and explore those a little bit deeper after all the events have happened. And it broke me. It honestly broke me.
This is what I mean. And although I'm being really negative, like this season is fine. Like it's fine TV. I enjoyed it for what it's worth, even though it is my least favorite one of the 3 series of Strange Things. I still thought it was fine. And there are moments that do genuinely tug on the heartstrings. The very end is very moving, possibly aided by a certain Peter Gabriel song, which you warned me of, thank God, because if you hadn't...
you would have been on the floor just in tears. I'll tell you now, that Peter Gabriel song, and the reason why, because I actually started tearing up. It wasn't full on like Waterworks blobbing on the bed, but it was tears kind of streaming.
Yeah.
It was one of those moments that hit me. The Peter Gabriel song played at the end of episode 3, series 1, was what sold me on the show. That kind of moment of finding Will's body and having Joyce with the lights and that entire
that was
thing.
The episode where people were like, okay, this series is it's going places.
Then, and having a callback to that piece of music, look, I'd be happy if the series ended right there, right then.
Had we hadn't have had the mid-credit scene, I would agree with you.
Yeah, completely. If that had ended the series, then it would have been just one of the best series kind of finale send-off moments I would have seen in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
For a series that's ending.
And it would harken back to Sophie Turner's line from X-Men Apocalypse. Oh, the third one isn't as good, but it would still be a good ending. I would agree with that. If that was like the ending, I'd be fine with it.
Yeah.
But this is going to take it on to my final point, and then we can touch on some more. I know we've talked about spoilers with some things, but we can go more in depth in certain things if we need to. I think Stranger Things, and to be honest, I thought this even when we got into season 2, but I very much feel it with this season. I think Stranger Things is creatively bankrupt at this point. I think that, and I don't know if this was the original intention. Brinsley, when he tuned in, he put, remember when Stranger Things was supposed to be an anthology? They originally said it was going to be different story each series. I didn't even know that was their intention, but that was my takeaway when I finished season 1 and we were going into season 2 with the same characters. I think this would have been a fantastic idea if, like the sort of Stephen King horror books that it's based on, just have different horror themed sci-fi otherworldly kind of stories set in the same world. If you want to, maybe you can have the upside down as the constant between everything, but just give me different characters, different stories each time. I think, do you remember the TV show Heroes that came out in the mid 2000s? that was going to be an anthology series as well. Each season was going to be different characters, different powers, but because it was successful and people liked the characters, they had to try and keep thinking of ways to bring the characters back.
They still have the opportunity to go and turn it into not an anthology series, but they can go and turn it into something else. I know the characters are truly loved here at this stage, and it would be interesting to take it in a completely new direction. But you've got, I mean, even as a spin-off, 11 is the 11th test subject. I know
God.
No. Hear me out.
Are we going to go back to that episode from season 2?
We've seen one of the others. There must be stories of others, like ones who could actually have better character depth and can be developed and everything like that. If not, then you go and take it as something completely different. Have it like a kind of Twilight Zone kind of series. You have 3 or 4 seasons, and then you go for Stranger Things. I wouldn't call it Stranger Things anymore. I call it something completely different, like like.
It'd still have Stranger Things in the title.
Yeah,
let's be honest.
But they've got Stranger Things. Stranger Things Series 1 wasn't called Stranger Things Series 1. It was Stranger Things 1, Stranger Things 2, Stranger Things 3. So they've kind of exhausted that option. Unless they go for Stranger Things, then have it as a tagline, like Twin Peaks did with its movie and its subsequent series. I think this show is somewhere between Twilight Zone and Twin Peaks in that sense. It's got an overarching story, but it's kind of that outer-worldly premise.
Yeah. The fatigue has kind of hit me with this one more so than ever. It did with Series 2, but this one for me, a lot of it just felt been there, done that, and it's following the same beats every single time. It's like, oh no, a rift has opened. Oh no, this brand new monster's come out. Oh no, L's the only thing that can stop it. Oh no, wait. I'm tired of seeing those slimy, poo-looking monsters that come out of a hole to another realm. Will's kind of going nuts, or he's very vulnerable, and it feels like there's some kind of shady laboratory. And that's the thing as well with like the ending of this thing, that the poster, for God's sake, like they have the mall, which is a great setup. I love that set, and they focus a lot of their time there, quite rightly so. Love the lighting of it and just how it's like the layout, like the main foyer with the fountain. It makes for a really good action set piece. But you also have the carnival, like the fun fair that's bigged up for the 4th of July celebration. And there were so many possibilities that you could do with that. Like I thought, it shapes up like you think that the monster's going to approach the fair. There's people stuck at the top of the wheel, and you've got all this scenario planned out in your head, and maybe it's a case of subverting expectations, but they kind of just drop the fun fair aspect of it. You get a brief little, fist fight in there with Hopper and the Russian guy, and that's about it. And I just think there was a lot of potential there to show us something new, to not have something set in a dingy grey basement in a Russian kind of, you know what I mean? It just, it felt very been there, done that. And to me, like, they tease a season 4 in the mid credits. There are places it can go to. I won't mention this now because this is very much spoilers, but there is a possible character that could return for season 4, and if they do that, I think that will be a huge mistake.
We already said there's spoilers here in this review, so let's just go ahead and talk about Hopper's death.
Yeah. Yeah. So it did feel a little bit. I liked the aftermath of it. The stuff with whenever a character pulls out a letter from a deceased character or a loved one in a TV show,
it is almost the perfect letter, because I wouldn't have gone with the whole 3 inches, keep the door 3 inches, but that hits so hard when I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah,
like that whole, and please, for the love of God, keep the door 3 inches open. Maybe that's going to be a call forward to him being. There's a lot of theories here. First of all, there's a ladder on the other side of the machine from where he could have been vaporized. He could have escaped that way. It'd be very difficult to see the ladder, but.
Is this going to be like a Sherlock end of Sherlock season 2 going into 3 thing where we're strategizing how he survived?
He could have jumped into the upside down.
That's what I think.
Himself,
yeah,
and keep the door 3 inches open. Could come back as a kind of, they have to reopen the upside down to save Hopper, and it's that entire kind of 11 wants to open the rift, but all the other characters don't want to deal with the consequences if they do. And that entire kind of dynamic between the friendship, maybe having the group split off in that sense, with people who want to open the rift, like Joyce, who'd want Hopper back, and Millie Bobby Brown's character, like 11, wanting Hopper back as well, and then that testing the relationships and friendships and stuff like that. You could have Hopper trying to break out from the inside in that sense as well, or he's already gone through the rift and he's been captured by the Russians, and he is the American in that cell.
Well, we see the Is it the Demigorgon or the Demidog that we see at the very
It is
end?
the Demodog becoming the Demogorgon. So it's standing on its hind legs.
So it's some kind of like evolution hybrid thing.
Yeah.
So maybe
looks...
maybe the Russians went in and pulled Hopper out because they keep him behind the cell door.
Yeah.
They say the Russian. Maybe that's them sort of testing the waters. Maybe it's them keeping the option of possibly bringing Hopper back, but also they could throw it for a loop and bring in a new character.
The American could be a different character though. They could fully kill off Hopper, and I'd be okay with that because he had a good ending. But I can't remember the character's name. The conspiracy theorist guy.
Yeah.
That could be the American. I don't remember where he left off.
We didn't see. So he runs off with Joyce when they escape the base, and then the American army comes in with their guns, and he says, "American, American, we're American," and then it does the 3-month time jump, and we don't see him again.
So
could be him. I think it's them keeping the possible option of maybe bringing Hopper back if that's what people want. But do you know what I mean? If that is the case and Hopper comes back, I do think that will very much kind of ruin the ending of this particular movie, of this particular series. Do you know what I miss with like movies and everything now, it seems? The bliss, the finality of death. When a character died in a TV show, it used to mean something. Now it's just like, oh, okay, we can just bring them back next season because they're popular. I kind of want him to stay dead. And in all honesty, I could have done without the season 4 tease at the end. It probably will get a season 4 because, I mean, this has been very popular. And I think it will continue to be popular with people. But I do get the sense that, if it's going to be we need to open the rift again and we get Hopper out, but then something bigger and badderer comes out of it, it's just, you know what I mean? It just feels like we're just repeating the same shtick at this point.
So one thing that I literally today only just saw kind of the kind of connection to, this show is almost a carbon copy of the Future Predators story from Primeval. Do you remember Primeval?
I do remember. I'm trying to cast my mind back to it. I remember Primeval very well. I used to love that show.
I used to love that show as well.
I remember the look of it, and it looked very much like the Demigorgon, if I'm remembering rightly.
I'm going to send you a photo of the Future Predator. I'm wondering if I can...
I think it looks like the Demigorgon, if memory serves.
It really does.
Yeah,
I said, yeah, straight up. So, guys, if you want to, I'll try and share it on here. There you go. Have a look at that. That is the Future Predator from the series Primeval. The series Primeval, by the way, is a series which was primarily based on these anomalies, these cracks, basically,
these rifts
in the universe.
Time.
These rifts to another world opening up, but it opens up to various different points in time, mainly the dinosaurs, and then this Future Predator, which was from, obviously, the future. But, yeah.
And dare I say, better special effects than the Demigorgon.
Oh, absolutely. I used to love Primeval. That show was awesome.
I don't know why I dropped off it. I think it moved to Sky for a series, and I didn't see that series.
I didn't even realize there was 5 series and now comics.
And then it got brought back for a couple of episodes, I think, and then it went away again.
There's something called Primeval: The New World, which is a Canadian spin-off. They had a Canadian spin-off of Primeval.
It got to a spin-off. You know what? We should go back and watch Primeval.
I would happily binge-watch the entire 5 series and the Canadian spin-off of Primeval.
Comment below if you want to see us review a series that ended years ago.
We will watch the shit through that. They even got like novels and comics as well.
That was on like
ITV. It was ITV.
Yeah,
I used to watch it addictively. I've still got the first 3 series and box sets, maybe 4 series.
I remember like the main protagonist, crazy ex-wife, had like gone in back in time, and she was nuts, and she was trying to kill everyone. But it was excellent. Man,
the show was excellent, dude.
It was great. We should just turn this into a Primeval review now. Like, oh boy, that was a blast from the past. You know, when you forget something, like you remember it, but you forget something for like ages. Like,
we'll get back on topic now.
Stranger Things.
We have a question. We have a question from the comments. HDGX Slim. What did you think of Eleven losing her powers at the end? I think it's brilliant if they're going to set up for another series. I think the entire kind of struggle of her trying to live out her life, and the first time really in her life, her not having powers.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe having to find powers in various different things. What powers that all the other characters have that they rely on, like their courage, like their strength and stuff like that. Something
if you're about to say the power of love, I'm going to slap you through the camera right now, Tate.
The power of friendship, Chris. The power of friendship.
Was this Captain Planet now? Like...
But no, honestly, I think her not having her powers back at the moment could play into the fourth series, especially if it's the was it Star Trek 3, The Search for Hopper, or wherever they're going to go with. It's going to be interesting to see that kind of dynamic moving forwards.
I think it was necessary because, you know, like it got to the stage where when they're trapped in the log cabin and it's breaking through and Elle's saving the day, and then she saves the day again, and then she like rips it to shreds, and then you get to the finale and you're thinking if she just like comes in and saves the day, which she has done the previous 2 series with the ending monster, like it'll be an absolute retread. So we do kind of see that her powers degrading as the series goes on. We see her using it for personal gain and for pranks and to spy on people and things like that, like little mundane things that she doesn't usually use it for. And, you know, her friends are really pushing her to constantly use her power. And we do see her get weaker and weaker as a result of that, to the point where she probably expends it all when she fights the monster. Do we have a name for the monster in this thing?
It was the Mind Flayer.
Again, oh, is it just the Mind Flayer? Okay.
The Mind Flayer.
Okay. Yeah. When she uses her powers against that, like basically all of her powers are gone. So I quite like that. It's a different paradigm to the character that we haven't seen before. And we're going to get a season 4. When they continue that into season 4, she's going to get her powers back at some point, but maybe she's going to have to go through some kind of self-discovery or go back into her past and rekindle it. I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe she'll hang out with the Lost Boys crew from season 2. That one episode that no one wants to talk about or go back to, thank God. Or maybe we'll get a Canadian Stranger Things spin-off where we'll spend time with those kids.
And suddenly an anomaly comes out of nowhere.
Right?
And the Demogorgon has to fight the future Predator.
Primeval crossover, let's do it. Like, I'd be so cool with that.
I'd be down with that.
I'm trying to think if there's any other like major plot points I want to talk about this
One thing that I will say I really liked, and I know that you didn't seem excited about it when you were messaging me about the final episode, but the whole Billy's mother kind of connection. I really, really like that. I loved the fact that it was kind of the one thing that Mind Flayer left for Billy, and it's the one thing that basically took it down.
Mm-hmm.
Like that kind of one last connection that Billy had to the world. And even though he was a horrible character for the last 2 seasons, he died being a hero. He died saving the team.
Yeah.
And whether that comes as some form of redemption because he's been a puppet this entire series, but that was really well acted by Millie Bobby Brown and also the character of Darcy Montgomery. Brilliantly acted from both of them in that scene.
Good acting. I have to admit, I didn't feel much when Billy died because him and Max, who were introduced in season 2, I really didn't care for their characters, and I still don't care for. I thought Billy was a lot better in this one, and I thought he acted very well. That very possessed, you know, that conflict in the character. I didn't think he did knock it out of the park with this one, but he's just not a character I particularly care about, and I don't like Max either. Like she feels wrong. She doesn't feel like she belongs in the group still. We want to keep the girls out of the group, man. Like girls aren't allowed in the
But at the same time, Lucas is still kind of in that young relationship with Max, and then you've also got 11 and Mike, and with the series ending, 11 comes back for Thanksgiving. So Mike will see her again. So that kind of relationship could be formed long distance, especially if they're using Cerebro for it.
I love that they called it Cerebro.
I know. You've got kind of Dustin with his own kind of relationship there. Really, the only person who's losing out big time here, I know 11's having to move away, and Max is now kind of living on her own. But Will, he's not only kind of losing his friendship group, but he's the only person who actually isn't getting any at the moment. So
the guy's still wearing like little boy short shorts, and it's really not a good look. Like, please, for the love of God, season 4, get them a wardrobe update.
I want him to have a mustache. I want him to come back just the thickest beard you've ever seen.
I don't. So let's look at where we leave the characters off and the future of this series. So Joyce and Steve are the most unluckiest in love characters ever, to the point where I said, like, I just want them, because they both have shared trauma, just like throw both of those together. We're going to have Steve and Robin working at the video store, which could be pretty funny. I did like that bit at the end. Yeah, I don't know what to say because it ends so. I won't say it ends with a sense of finality to it, but just where the characters are broken apart. If you bring them together, I think that's going to really diminish the effects of the ending of this series.
Yeah.
It'll almost be like if they make a Toy Story 5. Without going into spoilers for that thing. HTG says, do you think the series will move away from Hawkins?
I think
That's a good point because a lot of them are still remaining in Hawkins, but you will cut between two different places, won't you? But then at some point you're going to have to get the people because how are they going to talk to each other? Either they're going to bum off and have separate adventures and meeting together at the very end again, or you're just going to have people talking via radio, or I don't know, or maybe you're going to have certain episodes that focus on one character and then we'll cut to another group of characters. I don't know how they could do it.
Oh my god! Wow! Someone's just blown this for me. I'll need to confirm this. But what is the character of Dustin's girlfriend called?
Susie.
Susie. Okay, no, it's not the same person. Okay. Someone online put that she looks way too similar to Moaning Myrtle from Harry Potter.
Oh no!
But she did play Matilda on theatre on stage, which I can kind of see.
Okay, so the singing of Neverending Story. This is one thing I wanted to bring up. So
weirdest moment in the series by far.
Weirdest moment. I was trying to look to see would Neverending Story have had this bigger cult following at this point? Because you got to think about home video release back in the 80s. Neverending Story came out in 1984 and was released on Laserdisc in 1985. I did my research on this. Would it have been that? Then again, they were singing the song. The song was a big hit. I don't know, but anyway. Max's brother dies, Billy, in the most horrific way possible. She kind of has the moment where she falls to her knees, no, that kind of thing. She's absolutely distraught. Hopper dies. Millie Bobby Brown's distraught. Everyone's sad and depressed. We get a 3-month time jump. And then Max is just singing Neverending Story by Lamal with Lucas, and it's like nothing has happened at all and everything is right with the world.
Well, it's an amount of time has passed and maybe she's starting to kind of settle back into it. She's had a traumatic event and she is now able to at least get a little bit of,
Dude, there are different degrees of happiness, okay? I see what you're saying, and time is a healer. 3 months is still a relatively short amount of time, but I see what you're saying. Going out, hanging with friends, going to see a movie or something. And then there's singing Lamal's Neverending Story. You have to be at the happiest place in your life to do that. You either have to be in the shower belting it out like it's just, you're giving it everything it's got.
Chris,
you're in the happiest place.
Did you belt out the Neverending Story theme?
Possibly many times whilst I've been in the shower, yes, but I don't see what that has to do with anything. My point is, it did feel, I think when you go from a very emotionally wrought scene, you cut to black, you do 3 months later, and then your very next scene is a happy-go-lucky moment, like nothing has happened, and you return to that equilibrium. There wasn't really that much of a transition there. On the other side, Eleven's character, she is still mourning, and Joyce is still mourning, and she is very much in that sad place and trying to make the best of a bad situation. Maybe the move has something to do with that and the knowledge of being away from the group and being away from Mike. I did kind of miss that part. Why did she have to move with Joyce and Will?
Maybe that was how the custody worked. Possibly.
Maybe. It seemed like it was her... Because isn't Elle still off the grid? They were keeping her identity a secret, she wasn't allowed to go out or anything like that, so going to the mall was a big deal. If she really loved...
No, I think the reason why... the reason why Hopper didn't want her to go to the mall was because he was afraid that she might, do something with her powers. I don't think it was to keep her off the grid.
But if she loved Mike, I just don't know... For season 1, she stayed in Mike's basement, granted away from the mum, but now the mum's aware that he does have a relationship with this girl.
Yeah, but the mum isn't aware that Elle has powers.
Well, no, she doesn't have. Well, she doesn't have powers now. So what's the problem? She could just stay with Mike if she loved him that much. Nancy and Jonathan is an interesting dynamic. I will agree with you there. They are kind of wasted this series. I did like the whole kind of Lois Lane angle they were taking Nancy, where she was stepping up and trying to unearth this story. But then, clang, they just drop that midway through, and we get back to the normal survival horror ending of the series.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to sum up my thoughts, this series more than anything, or do we have one more comment? HTG says, I hated how Max didn't say anything about Billy after he dies at the end, or 11 not saying anything after he saves her either. Yeah, maybe you could have had a moment between Max and, again, shared trauma. You could have had a moment between Max and Elle, that transitionary scene where she says, like, you know, everything, I've lost people too, like, everything's going to be okay, something like that. I don't know, something. It just felt weird going straight to it. So I will agree with HTG there. Why am I having such a hard time saying that name in the comments? Final thoughts on the series, because I don't really have much else to say. This one felt very meandering and a bit muddled, and it felt like the creators didn't really know where they wanted to take the characters. They did have some initially good setups, like the whole breaking the party apart, and you know, the ending was very emotional. But there's a lot of characters, there's a lot of plot cul-de-sacs there, and around like episode 5, 6, 7, it did feel like it was treading water a little bit. I was underwhelmed with the series. I still had a good time with it. I still think it's fine. It still did make me laugh in some moments. I still do enjoy geeking out at all the 80s power ballads they love to play over the top of these things, all of the Madonna clothing montages, and of course the singing to Neverending Story, and going to the cinema and seeing Back to the Future as well. I love that stuff. But it did feel like they dialed it up more this series more than anything. I don't know. I kind of want it to end now.
I really enjoyed the series. I'm happy to see more of it. I'm invested into this now. I thought it was very, very well done. The characters are developed perfectly. I just liked everything about this series. I just thought it was just a very, very solid Netflix production, and some of the best TV I have seen this year. I know this year's been very kind of. I still haven't seen Chernobyl yet, which is meant to be. It's still the highest rated TV series of all time. I have no idea how
it's not quite that good. It's very. I've seen the first episode. I've got 4 more left to watch. It's weird. It's weird in that I'm probably going to offend like a Russian viewer here, and because we've been discussing a series that has evil super Russians, I hope they don't hunt me down or like, you know, black bag me or something like that.
Well, the last episode, Chris, has a 9.9 after 43,000 votes.
Oh Jesus!
So
okay. Well, the first one, it was very intense. It was very, you know, intense as you watch it, emotionally wrought. You can't believe this thing happened. The only weird thing which I don't like about it is that everyone speaks English. People call each other like Comrade Chichnikov, but they're all English. I think there's an Irish girl in that. Like, I would prefer it if they'd have got Ukrainian or Russian actors with
some of the best series. One of the best series I've seen is Deutschland 87, or is it 82? Where basically it's a series about the kind of German conflict around the Cold War. That in kind of person from the east side going to the west and kind of living that lifestyle and stuff like that, and being a spy on the opposite side of the wall. Brilliant series. So glad that it does have some American characters who do speak American, but almost all of it's in German. So it's a brilliant series because of that. And I prefer it because of that as well.
I would see, that's what I wish Chernobyl had been. There is that level. I know we need to wrap up and we don't want to make this a Chernobyl review, and I've only seen 1 episode, but there is that weird disconnect that something doesn't feel right when you've got someone who sounds like he's from the East End of London calling someone comrade something in Ukraine, you know, like it's weird to me. I like stuff when it's in the native language, but then I know it wouldn't be as accessible to a lot of people. It might turn a lot of people off it. I get it, but it's just weird. But here's the thing. So I guess we could round off on this, and this might tease into future Netflix reviews we can do. I have signed up for a 30-day free trial of Netflix due to Stranger Things season 3.
What are you going to do with it, Chris?
Well, when you sign up with, for anyone who doesn't know, when you sign up a Netflix account, a 30-day free trial, it asks you to like 3 shows of like a selection of thumbnails, just so it can kind of personalize your experience. So I was given all these things. Stranger Things was one. Tick that. I saw Breaking Bad on there. I enjoyed Breaking Bad. Tick that. And then I thought, what am I going to do for the 3rd one? And I saw Black Mirror, and I ticked that. So it's been long since delayed. You've been catching up with this thing. This thing is like 5 seasons in now.
I'm telling you now, I've binged through almost every single episode about 10 times. It's one of the greatest series I've ever watched.
I remember watching the first series when it came out, when it was still very low key. It hadn't moved to Netflix at that point. Charlie Brooker was writing it. I don't even know if he still does write the episodes.
He is still writing it. Yeah, he is.
But now it's blown. Now you're getting in like talent, like big Hollywood talent in like the music realm, or, you know, like film realm, like huge talent, which really wasn't how the series started. So that could be a possible series review that we could do. And I know that next month, which is one of my most anticipated series from this year, also on Netflix, is going to be The Dark Crystal Ages Resistance. The Dark Crystal, love that movie. Jim Henson made. All the puppets are back. All the practical effects are back. I can't wait for it. That's going to be a 10-episode series. That's got a great cast in it too. So I'd very much like to review that.
And Chris, just a reminder that Series 6 of BoJack Horseman will be out at some point in 2019.
Oh my God. See, I need to catch up on. I need to go back and just watch it from the beginning, because I missed the last series that came out, but also a lot of stuff goes down in BoJack Horseman, and it's been a while since I've watched that, so that would probably be one I need to go back to. But the point is, I have Netflix now, which means I can watch as much stuff as I want, and I feel like I've got a 30-day free trial. Why not make the most of it, right, and watch everything that I can? So tonight, you know what, I might watch some Black Mirror. I might start getting on that whole thing. But there are many possibilities out there now. We need to round off anyway, but thanks to Brinsley and HTG in the comments. If any of you other guys tune in and you've seen Stranger Things Season 3 and you've got any thoughts on it, please share them, positive or negative, any questions, any speculation for Season 4, or maybe there was something we forgot to talk about in this one that you want to hear our opinions on. Please do get your comments in. As for what's coming out at the cinema, I still need to see Spider-Man Far From Home.
Yes, you do.
You and George very graciously did a review on there yesterday. I did start watching. I think I got about 10 minutes in, but I wanted to tune out before you guys got to the spoiler section. And also Annabelle Comes Home comes out later this week, so I need to try and see that. That'll be a very interesting double feature.
I am possibly going to go see Yesterday tomorrow, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And yeah, something that we've been talking about for a while now is possibly getting film club started again. So please keep an eye on our social media, because we'll announce what the first episode is pretty soon. I already have, I believe, 6 of the films lined up for this series, all of which I'm pretty sure Chris hasn't seen. So I think it's going to be a very interesting series, a real mixed bag of different genres of films as well, pushing forwards, which I think is going to be brilliant.
Do you know why I love Film Club? And you know what? I think I need this series of Film Club more than ever this year. Film Club reminds me of why I like movies. Yeah, it really does. I have been.
It's nothing but Wes Anderson movies, all of them.
God, okay, please don't do that. Jesus Christ. Like, I know we need to round up, but like 2019, I have been on the ropes with movies. Not a lot of stuff has come out this year that's really wowed me, and it kind of hit my enthusiasm with going to the cinema just a little bit. I still like going to the cinema. You still get your John Wick 3s and your Toy Story 4s, but nothing's really, you know. Hopefully that will change before the year's out, because it will be a very, very sad movie year. But Film Club, it's good to go back and watch stuff I haven't seen, some of these big movies. So hopefully you add some big names on there that I do definitely need to watch, and you're probably going to have some smaller movies. I really want to watch that George Clooney movie again with Vera Farmiga. Up in the Air, was it? Was that what it was called? Or
which one? Up in the Air, yeah.
I'm still thinking about that movie. So this is the power that Film Club has. I'm very much looking forward to seeing the titles that you pull this year.
Yeah.
And we do have some other show ideas. I'm conscious that we haven't been as active on the channel as we have been, but I think we're going to have a shakeup. I think a shakeup's coming. We've got new things planned, and we just need to talk about it. And let us know what you'd like to see on the channel as well. Are you bored of anything that we're doing? What would you like to see? What could we introduce new onto the channel? Your input is very important as well. That'll do it from us. We've talked enough. So until the next video, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.